Okay, so you are all once again welcome to Dr. King Talk Show. It's a 250 days countdown to America 250-year independence. What a time to live in America and to be alive. My guest today on the show was born in Nigeria, left Nigeria before 1960, and I call it a destiny journey that has spanned three continents, Africa, Europe, and America. Educated at BCU, Howard, Michigan State University, USC, and USC, shaping intellectual legacy, made history as the founding chairman of African and African American Studies at the University of Kansas, currently serving as founding president of the African and African American Historian Society, author of over 35 books, and one of the foremost voices on Africa and the diaspora matter. At 86, still very strong, agile, visionary, looking into the future. Join me tonight to welcome to the studio Professor Jacob Gordons, Professor Emeritus, distinguished global scholar and historian. Prof, you are very much welcome.
Thank you very much.
Prof, your story is a very long one, and I'm so excited about all of the things that we're going to be discussing tonight. But let's just start with your background from Nigeria, and Africa. For many of you may be familiar or you are not familiar, Nigeria is in Africa, in West Africa. Prof, you left Nigeria before 1960, before the independence, studied in the UK. And how has that shaped the early part of your journey in destiny?
Well, I was very fortunate. Actually, I owe the Accra conference, which was convened by Kwame Nkrumah after the independence of Ghana. That conference was in 1958. I was just finishing my education at Yaba College. It used to be called Yaba High College. It's now called Yaba College of Technology. His Selassie attended the conference in Accra, and he decided to offer scholarships to African students to come and study in Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia. I was one of the first recipients of that scholarship. So my first study actually was at Addis Ababa University, 59. I was doing economic history. I was fortunate that in the summer, I had an international internship with Swiss Air in Zurich, in Switzerland. It was there that I got scholarship to come to the United States in 1960. I went to Bethune-Cookman College, which is now Bethune-Cookman University. It was founded by a Black woman, Irma Claude Bethune, in 1904. So I finished my BA degree in history from Bethune-Cookman University. Then I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. to do my master's degree in history. And then later on, I went to Michigan State, where I finished my PhD also in history. I got this is 1960 before Nigerian independence.
1960, and this is 2025. That's like over 50 years, Prof.
I've been here for more than 60 years, yeah, most of my life.
More than 60 years. That is amazing journey. Okay. If I trace back a little back to Africa, so can we really say what actually influenced your choice of history? Because sometimes we need to learn from history, but before we even go to history, what influenced your particular choice of history as a line of thought?
Well, I did at Yaba, I did commerce and liberal arts, and almost everyone teaching at Yaba then, they were all expatriates, white. Obasanjo, who became president later on, was my schoolmate. He was my senior at Yaba. He did engineering and then went to the military. The rest was history. I did liberal arts, and I learned quite a lot about British Empire history without any knowledge of my own Nigerian history or African history. So I was very much inspired in looking at the economic history of the British Empire. That was my motivation.
Amazing. Now, so, I mean, of every other person who have gone through some of this process, can we say that your development in Africa was what guided you in becoming the founding chairman of the African and African American Society Studies in University of Kansas?
There's no doubt about that. My African background, if you look at my memoir, I call it double heritage.
Mm.
Side of my memoir. Double heritage because one part of me is Africa and the other part
Mhm.
is diaspora.
Yeah.
Okay. My foundation actually came out of Africa. My mother from the Delta is a Shekri woman. My father,
Mhm.
an noble man, they got married and they went to Benin City area where I was born. It's a small village near Benin City called Okwahe. My father died very early. I was a little boy, probably about 4 or 5 years old when my father died. He's an
Mhm.
old man, a chief he was. And then my mama raised us. We were four children. My sister, my brother Emmanuel, who became chief in Sapele before he passed, myself, and then my younger sister. She always taught us to live a purposeful life. That has stayed with me all my life.
Mm.
Live a purposeful life. If you want to really make progress in your life must have some purpose. Why are you living? What's going to be your legacy?
Mm.
Your contribution to society. That has always been in front and back of my head. I carry it with me wherever I go. And I teach my children the same value.
So, in essence, these are the strategic principles that we can call that also shape your leadership as a founding president of the society.
Yes, yes. Everything I do is governed by that principle. Try to lose life, and those who are around you will learn how to do the same thing.
Have you stayed in Florida for quite a while, Reed? Is that so?
Yes, I came here in 1960. I finished my bachelor degree 62. Then I went to graduate school in Washington, D.C. at Harvard. And when I finished at Michigan State, my first job was to teach in a historically black university in Georgia. It's called Albany State University. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
appointed as associate professor and chair of the Department of History and Political Science. That was my first
Mm.
full-time. Then I left there in
Mm.
1970 to go to University of Kansas, where I spent about 35 years before I retired as the first black man to become professor emeritus from the University of
Wow.
Kansas. Yes.
Congratulations, Prof.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That is a landmark accomplishment.
Hey.
That is a very, very landmark accomplishment. So I'm looking at Florida, and so I said, so how has Florida shaped your landscape? I mean, the community, is it like they welcome you, or you have done some very strong work in Florida, or something like that?
Okay. Yeah, here's the beginning of the story. When I retired, 2005 from Kansas, I made up my mind that I was not going to retire in Kansas with that kind of heavy winter, the snow, everything. I wanted to go back to a place where I can experience my African tropical climate.
Okay, I get it
So
now.
I decided to come back home, what I call home, Florida. Florida
Okay.
became my home, and I've been here since I retired. I was in Africa from Kwame Nkrumah chair, Fulbright, the rest of them, but I have a home here in Florida, my wife and I.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing. So how did serving as Kwame Nkrumah endowed chair at the University of Ghana strengthen your Pan-African mission?
Well, to begin with, my master's degree thesis was on Pan-Africanism. My thesis advisor was Riford Logan, who
Mm.
was the secretary of the Pan-African movement. I recall very clearly that W.E.B. Du Bois came and gave a lecture, a historiographical class, when I was at Howard University before he went to Ghana in 1963. I was just finishing my master's degree then. So I've been a Pan-Africanist for quite a while. I believe in the unity of Africa. I believe in the promise of the Pan-African movement from 1900 until 1945, which was the last conference in Manchester before Nkrumah brought in Africa to Ghana. Yeah, I have always been a Pan-Africanist. The concept or the idea of a USA, that is United States of Africa, has always been at the back
Mm-hmm.
of my mind. I have no doubt that only Africa, if the Africa can unite, they can control their destiny and their resources, and they will take their proper place in world history. We are not there yet. Nkrumah and his Selassie, they tried. They created OAU, and the OAU turned into African Union. Where do we go from here?
So let me quickly play a little on that African Union, OAU, and all of that. Now, looking back to those days and now, what are the things that have hindered Africa, not just in development, apart from unity? What are the things that have not allowed us to bring that United States of Africa that you mentioned about? Do we say it's Western culture, or it's our own challenges back at home, or is a combination of all?
It's all of the above. But let me be clear. We were warned by Kwame Nkrumah. He talked about neo-colonialism. Neo means new. He said, if we get this old colonialism, we should be aware of the neo-colonialism. And that's where we are.
Wow.
The invisible hand of West is still controlling Africa. It's very sad. A lot of our leaders, we have to decolonize their minds. The decolonization of African mind is critical if we have to move forward, to value our own African culture, our own civilization, our way of life, our food, instead of importing British food to Africa. The colonial process is still ongoing in Africa. Raw materials are exported into the global north. They manufacture them, cocoa and the rest of them, they send it back to Africa and they control the price. We have no control of any price. All our raw materials, they are either stolen or sold by some crook leaders. Illegal mining is going on in Africa as we speak. Illegal mining of oil, of gold in Ghana, silver, the Congo. That's why you have all those crises. It's a struggle for the gift of God, our natural resources. They are not being used for the benefit of African people.
Do you think that is actually deficiency of leadership? Are we going to say that is a problem coming from the West? Because recent
Partnership.
right now, huh?
It's partnership. No one can come to your country and take it if you don't let them do it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Because of
Yes.
the Traore of Burkina Faso is breaking the norms. So Rwanda is breaking the norm. So I don't know why other people cannot follow through. Don't you think that is in-house problem, is not outside problem?
It is. We are inviting them. Listen, I found a parallel between what's going on now in neocolonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. Okay? Portuguese didn't come to Africa because they loved us. They were in cahoots with the traditional slave dealers, traders. That's how it started. The transatlantic slave trade, one of the most important historical movements in human history. The slave trade and colonialism.
The time will come, you will have to delve a little bit into that, because I know you've. When I look at your contribution and innovation, I look at your inspired writing. You have authored more than 35 books that have shaped the understanding of the African and the African diaspora in history. Tell us a bit about all of these books. And
one of the first things I did when I became Kwame Nkrumah endowed chair, I was supposed to be there for a year or so. They kept me for 3 years, and I loved it. It was fine. I was living in the old colonial building, Little Legon in Accra, big house and servants' quarters and so on, boys' quarters. The same legacy is still there. You smell British impact. Still, we have not been able to colonize that. And so one of the first things I did was to promote a study of African history.
Okay, I love that.
Nkrumah saw that when he created the Institute for African Studies at the University of Ghana. We must learn about who we are.
Correct.
And unless we know that, our history in the past, we are going to keep on repeating the errors of the past.
I agree with that.
I regret to report to you that African universities have not done much about African studies. And so one of the things I did was to promote the development of an African Studies Association of Africa.
Okay.
And so in 2013, I became one of the founding life members of this organization, which I conceived, wrote the bylaws right there in Ghana, and we had the first conference at Ibadan. Okay? To promote the development and the study, the research of Africa. If you want to write African history, most of the materials are where? They are overseas. They're in British archives. They're in British archives. They're in American archives. They hardly find one in Africa. Found some as I traveled around. I was in Morocco, okay? The Kingdom of Morocco. Morocco had 3 cultures. It's Arab, it's African, it's French, and it's British. They were colonized also. So also in Ethiopia, they have a tradition. They have their own writing system. They have their typewriter. They have archives. But most of the rest of Africa have no archives. So I started to study presidential leadership and governance. And the book came out, was about 1,000 pages. And I traveled around everywhere to promote the study of Africa within Africa. You don't want people from outside Africa to interpret your history. History
That's
is a
true.
very powerful tool for development. You don't
That's
just
true.
study history and
That's
study the
true.
dates. No, it's a tool for development. There's cultural
Mm,
history, there is economic history, there's social history. Our people are dying, and they are dying with all their knowledge of African history. No one's actually
mm,
doing oral history. If you go to some archive, what they call archives in African university, you almost cry.
my God.
The materials are not preserved. The environment are not designed to preserve
Mhm.
materials. You open the windows, if you look at the book, 1800 book, you can't read it. It's all
Oh my.
fake. So we
Mm.
got a lot of work to do. That's why we created this organization. They meet once every 2 years. My hope is that they will continue to promote the study of Africa within Africa.
Thank you so much, Prof. You have done a very, very, very foundational work, and I just believe that talking to you also will be able to do more in preserving some of the fundamental baseline history that you have. One of the work that you have done is on James Aggrey, and I wanted to talk about it. Its impact on global perspective. Who is James Aggrey and the African intellectual leadership? Yeah.
The title of the book is Agri of Africa and the Americas.
Okay.
Agri was a very young man,
Mm.
born in 1825, the Gold Coast,
Okay.
and trained by the Wesleyan missionary. And he was very bright, was supposed to be sent overseas to learn and how to become a missionary in Africa. So in 1895, young man boarded the ship to go to the United States
Mm.
and study. The hope was for him to come back and do some work. Now, Agri had a lot of experience even on that first trip to the United States. All the people was appeared that he was the only black person on the ship. Going through overseas and London, the rest of them, he was told that he couldn't come out to eat together with the Europeans in the dining room.
Mm.
So the captain of the ship has to make arrangement for people to serve him his food in his room until he got to the United States.
God.
And Agri was happy. He said, "Oh no, I have many servants. That is wonderful. I can do my studies in my room."
I love that. That's a
That
mind.
was that was Agri.
Oh wow.
He came
That's
here.
awesome.
He couldn't go to any white university. He went into Livingstone College in Salisbury, North Carolina. Livingstone College. That's where he had his first degree and second degree, and he went to theological school, the Hood, right there in the same city. He became a lecturer and a professor right there at Livingstone College. Now
Mm.
finally went to Columbia University to get a PhD, where he met a group of scholars who were interested in the future of African education. It was called Phelps Stokes Foundation. The Phelps Stokes Foundation organized a tour of Africa to make assessment about the educational need. At that time, every country in Africa was still under colonial yoke, with the exception of Ethiopia and Liberia. So he joined that group to do that survey, to travel. He became actually the pioneer in African education in very early 1900. He took a trip to South Africa. He was invited to come and speak, and Agri got there. They call him Dr. Agri.
Mm.
Not allowed to enter into the hall. He was stopped at the gate by a gate man. Said, colored people are not allowed to come here. They waited for almost an hour. So the organizer came to the front door and he asked the person, he said, "Where's Dr. Agri? Is he here?" Oh, he said, "Here I am."
Oh, wow.
"Yeah, I'm here. Why are you still
Oh,
here?"
wow.
"Well, your gate man said black folks cannot come to this building."
Wow.
Agri went there and he spoke. He had a vision. That was the
Mm.
beginning of Agi's theorizing race relations. He was talking about racial cooperation. He said,
Mm.
you can be white.
Yeah.
He used an analogy of the piano.
Mm.
He said, if you go to the
Mm.
piano, you have a bar, piano bar, you can play
Yeah.
with black, it gives you good music.
Yeah.
You can play with white, it gives you good music. He said, but
Mm.
you play with white and black, it gives you the best music.
I love that. That's a very good analogy.
That was it. That he was talking about integration. Okay? He was talking about respect for individual race. He was once asked, he said, Agri, he traveled to Canada, he was suffered racial discrimination, even at the airport, not allowed to land because he was black. Asked him, he said, Would you rather become white if you were to have another life? God, how to create you. He looked at them, he smiled, and he laughed. He said, I will tell God, please make me even darker.
I love that.
Of that.
I love that.
The part
I
that
love
interests me
that.
about Agri's life is that he married a young black woman from Virginia, and they have four beautiful children. Short, his youngest rolled off. He became a U.S. ambassador to some countries in Africa before he died, become a lecturer at Howard University. Agri died a sudden death for stress from Africa after he went there with Phelps Stokes to develop Achimota College in Ghana, the first co-educational institution in the whole of West Africa. You know, Africa, even with the British, they have girls' school and boys' school. Agri was the one who developed the first school. It's called Achimota College. He has a principle which you learn in the United States. He said, you learn with your head, with your heart, and you must produce something with your hand.
You learn with your.
So, yeah. So he required agricultural development at that college. They go and produce the food that they cook for the students. They must do manual labor. Don't tell me if I ask you, what degree do you have? He said, I'm not interested. You tell me what you have done with your degree. So Agri had a philosophy of education that really was of interest to me. And the fact that I was married a Virginia girl, and unfortunate who was herself a great educator. I was fortunate to interview one of his granddaughters at Salisbury, took me to the cemetery where Agri and his wife were buried in the same cemetery. He was never buried in Africa. People think that he was buried in Africa. No, not in Ghana. He died in New York in the hospital, in a segregated hospital in New York, in Harlem. That was Agri.
Prof, thank you so much for dedicating your life to history. And I know that history is going to history is going to talk so much about you. And my own generation and the coming generation is going to talk so much about you. Thank you so much. You have done so well for keeping all of this record together. And I think we should be able to take it from there to the next level. So I'm not surprised that you are listed in the Who is Who in America. And how has this contributed to transformational scholarship in developing other leaders?
Well, I've been very fortunate in my life. I have series of all kind of awards, teachers award, leadership award. The list goes on. Who is who in Midwest? Who is who in America? I've been very fortunate, even overseas. I get all kind of awards in international education. It's hard work. It's hard work, dedication. I'm happy with what I do. Okay, that's the secret. I'm doing something that I love, and I'm being paid to do it. It couldn't be better than that. Nothing can be better than that. Look, history is a part of me. We are all historians by definition. We all have stories to tell. If we don't preserve those stories, they are going to be gone. I'm serving right now as a member of the Alajua County Historical Commission. So I'm a commissioner in our county. To shape, last year we organized a bicentennial symposium. Alajua became 200 years old. It's one of the six counties in Florida. 200 years old. I said, we are going to document African and African American contribution to this county in the state of Florida.
I love that.
There were African explorers that came here with the Spanish people to find Florida. An African came from Morocco. Came from Morocco, of all places. He had plantation. He had thought that he was going to create a haven for Jews because he was Jewish. They were being persecuted in Morocco by the Spanish people. And he came here and made a life for himself in a place called Mikonopi. It's a part of our county. So Africans' footprints have been here. They are everywhere. I would dare suggest that Africans were here long before Christopher Columbus got here.
Amazon?
Yes, they came before Columbus. That's the title of the book.
So you are saying that Africa coming to America is not about the transatlantic trade?
See, this is the problem. When people are teaching African Black history, they start from the plantation. No.
Really?
No. They were free African traders who were exploring the world. Africans were in China in their first dynasty. Africans were if you look at the history of European people, even the kinship, you find Africa there. The whole world is in denial of African presence. We were of civilization.
This is deep, Prof. This is deep, and this is really, really for people younger generation and all of that. Where do we get it wrong that we are not even hearing all of this kind of thing? That I'm hearing it for the first time, though.
Oh my goodness! They are not only books, but they are also doing some scientific research through DNA.
Okay.
Science now is proving African presence everywhere. Go to Colombia in South America. I spent some time in Brazil. If you are not in Brazil, you think you are in Yoruba land.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you. Okay.
So is it like the Western media are not playing this, or we ourselves are not promoting this enough? Because these are huge information.
Not doing serious work with African history. All our kingdoms, Mali, we have thinkers. When I was at the University of Ghana, I developed a graduate course for PhD seminar. I call it Thinkers. Like Ketia. Ketia was in Mali even before King Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was the richest man on the earth when he was in charge of University of Timbuktu and the rest of them. Two of the earliest universities in the world were created in Africa. One in Timbuktu, another one at Fez in Morocco. But people will tell you Oxford is there. Oxford is the oldest. Cambridge is it's a lie. We have to decolonize our history. That's what I'm saying. That's the challenge. That's the challenge.
Colonize our history.
Yes, a lot of them were written by colonial masters, colonialists. They told us the way they wanted people to read them. They stole our arts. They stole our inventions. Even people were in slavery. We are talking about 250 years now of American history. The first person who died in Revolutionary War, Christopher Attucks, he was a black man.
Come on now.
In the Boston Massacre. Yes.
Wow.
You will find out if you look at very carefully, even Revolutionary War, before 1776, Africans, they were free. They were not slaves. There were more than 30,000 Africans in this land during the Revolutionary War. They were free.
In America?
In America. Yes.
30,000?
30,000 at least who were free. They were not slaves. Now, when the war became tough, Washington started to recruit even those who were enslaved to come and fight. The British were recruiting Africans to fight on their side. And Africans fought on both sides with the hope that once they become independent, the Africans will not be enslaved anymore. The Native Americans did the same thing. They were here 12,000 years from Asia before the first Europeans landed in America. And people need to believe that this is a nation of white Christians, white male Christians. That's not true.
So, Prof, the big question that I have right now is, so how do we bring back Africa and Africa in diaspora to the center where we really belong in global progress? Because the things you are saying are huge information.
It's power. It's power. Europeans know the power of history, and they have used it against us. Went to sleep. Listen, I was at University of Lagos. He wasn't there when I left, but I went there to visit. I think in 2017. I have a daughter adopted there who's the professor, Mumi, and I was told the story that they wanted to offer a PhD program in Yoruba language. And parents came out and said, why will you offer a PhD program in Yoruba language? We speak Yoruba at home all the time. Why are you wasting your time for a PhD in Yoruba language? What are you going to do with it? It was cancelled. But guess what? Nigerians go to France to study French, PhD.
Yeah.
We go to England to study English, PhD. We go to Russia to study Russian. We go to China to study Russian. Why can't you study Yoruba, which is an ancient, old language, great civilization with kingdom? People are teaching Yoruba outside Nigeria than Nigeria is doing. I'm telling you now. If you go to Brazil, like I told you, you think you are an African village, a Yoruba village. Okay? The problem is that we have been colonized mentally. Nkrumah said that we have to decolonize mentally.
How do we decolonize mentally?
You have to unlearn those lies they told us.
We're going to lead that.
Well, that's why we created African Studies program. It's going to be led by our African educators who themselves have been decolonized, and there are not too many of them. Africa is still embracing a colonial educational system. Can you believe that? Even in Ghana, they still depend upon external examiners to pass their students who are coming from Oxford. Why will you do something like that? Huh?
As America gravitates towards our 250 years, and you mentioned that Africans have been here a long time before that time.
Yes.
So how do we begin to now start a journey of raising the young generation? How do we get them excited in this story? Because you've said so much. Do we 50 is a long time, and we have never been at the center. In fact, for me, this is the first time I'm hearing that we have been at the center even before the 250-year journey started. So how do we start bringing the young people who are not really interested in history and all of that? In what ways do you think we can start this journey of bringing the young people into loving to know this and loving to follow this passion that you are talking about?
A lot of work has been done.
Okay.
Now, for example, Karaji Woodson, look at him as the father of Black history.
Okay.
He created Black history. He was the second person to receive a PhD in history from Harvard. The first person was W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the greatest intellectuals of the 20th century. When Woodson left Harvard, 20 or 30 years later on, he wrote a book. It's called The Miseducation of the Negro. At that time, Black folks, African were called Negro. They've had different names, Afro-American, African. The name goes on, Black. He said he spent all the time at Harvard. He never wanted to learn anything about himself. He never even saw the picture of a Black person in any textbook, but he has a PhD in history. So a PhD in white history. So he created the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which was the pioneer, the vanguard for the study of Black people, not only in diaspora, because his first book was called The African Background. He went back to Africa, okay? So a lot of work is being done, but we're also facing a lot of problems. There are a lot of politicians who are beginning to politicize history. They want us to teach only that which is good. I think that if we teach history the way it actually is, we are going to make white people inferior and their children will feel inferior.
Okay, I get you now.
Here's my message to them. I'm not a historian to make anybody happy.
Yeah.
Or make anybody sad. I'm a historian that believes in and factual information.
To bring out the truth, yes.
Ugly, beautiful, and that is the function of a historian. But colonial historians never cared about that. There was a time that Africa has no history because Africa has no writing system. Brother, they were lying. Oldest writing systems.
Say that again, Prof. Say that again.
Writing system. It's not just hieroglyphics in Egypt. They were writing systems in Nubia. Older than that. Nubia, ancient Ethiopia.
Do you know, Prof, that the things you are saying right now, if an average young Africans are well informed, is going to empower them to really rise up and say, if we have been doing this long time ago, then we are not inferior in any way.
But we want to act like British people.
Can you see that?
Okay, in Ghana, we are still importing British food. When I was at Yaba, I was eating akamu and kara. The young folk now, they think they have arrived. Their parents have money. They fly them to London and bring the British food. British have no food. It's a island. They don't grow anything. Whatever they British, they manufacture their raw materials from Africa. They don't have anything. That's why they came to America to colonize this land and kill the Indians and took the land from them. Yes.
We have a long way to go.
We have an Afrocentric institution, Afrocentric educational system. You say you can't go be PhD in Yoruba language. People are teaching Yoruba right here, everywhere in America, okay? In Brazil. People of African descent, they are everywhere in the Americas, in the Caribbean. I spent some time in Cuba. You should go to the theater. You think you are in Lagos and get African music.
This needs to be documented and played for young people all around the world to see.
They're there. A lot of African leaders come to America and then they go back and become more ignorant.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot of people who are leading Africa were educated in the West, so their minds were colonized. Okay? They are not ready to go through the process of decolonization because that's what gives them recognition. I got to go and visit Buckingham Palace and honor the Almighty Queen or the King. We are still members of British Empire. Why are we not members of African Empire?
Anyway, we have a long way to go. At 86, you still look young and fresh. What's the secret? How do you relax plus all of this workload? How do you find time? What makes you look fresh and why you're still so sharp at 86?
Thank you so much for your kind remarks. I try to take care of my health. I wake up in the morning. I have a glass of warm water and then take a walk. I do 2 miles almost every day.
Wow.
Wife joins me all the time too. I do that.
Wow.
Exercise is very important, and what you eat is important. I still eat fufu and eba and gari, the rest of them. But nutrition is very, very, very important. And the other thing you need to do is make sure that you go to the doctor and examine yourself where you are. A lot of Africans are afraid to go to the doctor. Prevention is better than cure. And we are not even producing enough doctors. My niece, my daughter now, had just finished a degree at University of Delta State University in nursing. She will become midwife. We don't have enough medical doctors. Ghana has, there are more Ghanaian doctors in New York than they have in the whole country of Ghana. Nurses are not being paid, 1 year behind paying nurses. So people are dying. Malaria is still a problem in Africa, an old disease. All you do is to clean up the environment. People still walk around and piss everywhere they have on the street. When I was in British school, we have hygiene inspection every morning. What has happened? Infant mortality is still a big problem in Africa. Of all places, infant mortality.
And we have everything. We have all the resources. We have the human resources. We have the natural resources. We have the mental resources. We have the financial resources. We have only the willpower that we don't have.
That's all. That's all we need. God has blessed us with the weather, which should be producing good, what do you call it, energy into the whole regions of the world, especially Europe. That's a lot of money. Now, I think Morocco is trying to do that now because they're very close to Spain. It's science. African scientists are moving away. There's an African exodus. Here you go. Yep. The North is getting some of the best of us. Okay? Helping to run American universities. I don't care what anybody says. You want the very best scholar? That's what you got. We have deans here who are from Nigeria, Dean of College of Architecture. Yeah. And HBC, very sensitive. I'm very proud of my alma mater, Howard University. They are doing all kind of research, collaborating with some African universities. Tuskegee University collaborating with African University in agriculture, where you can turn cassava into about 20 products.
Wow. Love that. Wow.
It's also a black man.
There's so much on the table for Africa.
There is no global north without Africa and peoples of African descent. There is no global north. It's our resources and our manpower that have the global north. Whether they are forced labor or free labor. Forced labor with slavery. They were the one who controlled the plantation system in America. They were the one who were growing cotton. They were the one growing tobacco. Exported to create the first industrial revolution in Europe. It came out of here. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm not going to let go. We are still going to have to revisit a number of these and spread and stretch and keep a very strong record of tap into all of this mental capacity and see how much we can put so much on the table for the upcoming generation. For tonight, my last question, America is going to be celebrating our 250-year independence next year. 4th of July 26, and I'm telling you, it's a very huge one. I want us to look at how we can now bring Africa to the forefront as we start another journey of maybe the next 50 or the next 100 or the next 100 or 250 years, because this is a very strong point, and then a change of pattern. I'm looking forward to how do we really, really reposition Africa in this 250 year of America.
Africa is central, very central to human civilization, to the world, to the global community, very central. The world will never develop without Africa. That's never been. We have the youngest population growing. It's going to be 1 point something billion. Nigerian population is about 60% youth.
Yeah.
The Western world is growing old. They don't have youth. They don't have the capacity that we have. And yet we are wasting them already. When youth are demanding freedom to do something, they ignore them. They send police to go and kill them on the street in Nigeria and in other places. We are the future of the world.
So how do we tap into that, Prof? How do we tap into that future? Because I'm really, really, really passionate about this, and I think we need to look out for how to maximize that.
Well, you have to do the little thing you can do. My daughter, Dr. Francesco, She and her husband, they are doing some scholarship for young people. I think at the Ibadan area, they have a way of giving scholarship and get them educated from Afrocentric perspective. Our educational system had to be Africa centered, not Oxford, not Oxzone. And Ghana, when I first got there, they were welcoming me and they invited me to attend Oxzone Alumni Club. I said, where's Ghana University Alumni Club? We are still bragging that I went to Oxford. I went to Cambridge. And the first university in the world was created in Africa. Okay, so where are we? I went to Morocco. I brought a lot of literature from the palace in Arabic. I brought them to the University of Ghana. They said, we're not going to read this. If you want to know about our ancient history, you ought to have some knowledge of what? Of Arabic. There's no way out of it. It's not all about Christianity and the British schools and churches and the rest of them. They were there before they came. They were there in 6th, 3rd, 7th centuries. They were also in the slave trade, Arab world. We understand that. They were doing slave trade before the transatlantic slave trade. See what happened in East Africa, okay? Look at a place that used to call it's now called Tanzania. There was a little island there, it was called Zanzibar. That was a land for slaves, Arab slaves, which is now a part of Tanzania. And I was there. I saw it. I saw the legacy of slavery in that. We got to be in a hurry for development. The world is looking for us to provide our leadership. Our people are silent, even the United Nations. We have to be engaged. America is the way I look at American history, this is an experiment in cultural and racial democracy. People came from everywhere. We are all immigrants. To create this nation. And our historical society, African American Historical Society, we're going to have a symposium next July or August, in which we are going to focus on the African American Odyssey after the Reconstruction period in American history, that all men are created equal.
This is not the end of the something. It's just maybe part one of so many series to come. I want to thank you so much, Professor Gordon. I wanted to thank you for sharing the powerful journey across 3 continents and generations. I really celebrate your academic leadership and lifelong commitment to Africa and diaspora scholarship. I honor your global influence, groundbreaking books, your teaching, institutional building. Generation to come is going to talk about you. We acknowledge you. We celebrate you. We celebrate your service to humanity. And we really, really appreciate your insight on America and Africa and all of those things that you have spoken about. Thank you for your impact on future generations. Thank you. Viewers, tonight I've been talking to Professor Emeritus, Professor Gordon. I'm telling you, it's been an exciting journey. For more than 1 hour right now, we've been talking about the African and the African diaspora, about daily exercise, walking 2 miles, even with the wife. Media, we have the younger generation. I believe one of the greatest assignment that we have is to empower the future generation. And in empowering the future generation, we have to learn from history, because if we don't learn from history, history is going to repeat itself. So I so much appreciate the great work, the scholarship work that Professor Jordan has been doing. I'm so excited, and I thank you for giving us your time to share some of this wisdom with us. Also, on this note, I'm going to draw the curtain for today, and I'm still going to bring back Prof at one or two other occasions. So thank you so much. This is Dr. King Talk Show. It's a 250 days countdown to America, 250 years. If I've not learned anything at all tonight, I've learned that Africa has been here a long time before the 250-year journey began. And so this is the time for African and Africans in diaspora to rise up to the forefront, even take the baton of leadership, the baton of transformation, development, and nation building, not only here in America, but take the baton and go back to Africa and influence change. I believe a generation of young leaders and entrepreneurs are going to rise up, that we take the baton and we influence change. Thank you once again, Professor Gordon. Thank you for your time. I'm so excited. Viewers,
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.